Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Jeff and Paper Gary. It is Sunday, April 26th. Back for another day of work in the garage. As you can see, I'm sporting my Johnny Cash look today. That's all right. We do have something to celebrate. You may notice that Paper Gary has some new bling on here, and that is to celebrate surpassing the 100 subscriber mark. So hit that mark last night and surpassed it. So really happy about that. Never thought that I would reach 100 subscribers. So hope you guys are enjoying the channel and hope that you're learning something from it, or at least I'm saving you from some of the misery that I found the hard way after learning from but not remembering from that hippie pilot and T-Flight Tim. On the subject of those two have really cool names for their workspace, right? So you've got the Gilbertson Aero Factory, and then you've got Cleveland Skunk Works, which sounds really awesome now if you're following along with their podcast and you're listening to the Experimental News Desk, The End. So it's really neat. I don't have a name for my place. It's just the garage. And so I'm wondering now that we're serious with 100 plus subscribers, if it's not time to name the garage. You know, I do work for a certain aerospace company, and you know, maybe this is the experimental division of Phantom Works. I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you've got some comments or suggestions, put them in the comment section there, and we'll see what we can name the space. Today is going to be progressing further on the elevators. As you saw in the last video, we finished up, for the most part, the rudder. Now there's still some fiberglass work that's going to have to happen later. There's a counterbalance weight that gets installed that is just on the list of things to do. But we are on hold right now waiting for some rivets. So I ran out of the pulled rivets that go in that rolled joint. Now, if I didn't do a good enough job describing what took place and how that has to happen in the previous video, please let me know. What I wanted to illustrate, and I kind of ran out of time, I guess what I wanted to vocalize was where you start that bend is critical to get those two pieces to meet in the center. So, you know, you roll these things and you get kind of close and you put a little bit of force in there to get them buttoned up. You want to try to avoid as much of that as possible. Like ideally you would roll those things and they're just laying just like that, right? That's the perfect world. When you do that though, it's kind of tricky. Taping the bar, and one of the key elements that I learned in this one, and I know I did comment on this in the video, is don't try to roll all three of those sections at once. Cut yourself a shorter piece and roll them individually. I worried about them being symmetric and being the same. If you kind of roll in the same method, you're going to get there, and if you're off by a little bit, it's going to be negligible and unnoticeable. So I started with like a 1-inch steel pipe and tried to do the whole thing, and that was just not working great. I reduced down to cutting PVC pipe. So get PVC pipe with a 1-inch outside diameter, cut it down into lengths that match the section that you're bending, and then drill a couple holes on the ends of them so you can put like a punch or something in there to help leverage and rotate those things, get yourself some leverage on there. And that works much, much better. But the start of that bend radius is what's crucial. So if you tape to the end of the metal and you start rolling there, you're gonna roll the last part of that metal, I guess, the part furthest away from the spar. You're starting at that edge. And while you might get a nice 90-degree curve in there at one point, you're gonna get a long arm from the spar to where that bend starts, and it's not gonna reach the center point of that spar to where the other sides overlap. So instead of getting a nice overlap, you're gonna end up like this, and then you're gonna have to go back and manipulate and try to get that thing back in there, which is what we had to do. So when doing that, you don't really, in my mind, you don't really tape the bar to the end of the skin and roll it. You put this spar right up against, almost right up against the spar, and you form the metal around it. Now I know that's a slight difference, but I think it's important because you'll gain your distance to the center of the spar, if that makes sense, in that first half of the bend, right? So if you start that bend right after the spar, you start that bend, you'll get those to overlap like they should. Whereas if you start here at this edge of the metal and you start bending, you end up like this and not getting the length that you need. So if you have any more questions about that, I'm happy to chat about it, talk about it in the comment section, or reach out to me in any way, shape, or form. But eventually we got there. There was some question about the heat gun that we used. I really don't know if that made a difference, honestly. That was a suggestion of one of the three guys that was here helping. Was it more of a placebo effect? I don't know. I know enough about metallurgy to know that if you're going to change the grain structure of aluminum, you've got to get up to some pretty high temperatures, 1,000 degrees plus, and set at dwell times and quenching and all those kind of things. So annealing, tempering aluminum, things that I did eons ago back when I was in A&P school. I don't know if that little bit of heat that we put on there with the heat gun helped things relax into position. It is what it is, right? I don't feel that there's a whole lot of force on those things. I'm going to go ahead and, as soon as those rivets get in, go ahead and install those rivets and we'll be good. Now, an interesting fact, I'll call it fact, an interesting statement that I saw on one of Tim's videos, T-Flight Tim, while he was putting in the floor pans on his aircraft. He kind of boxed himself into a position where he had no choice but to put pulled rivets where we should have put solid rivets. And he mentioned something about the shear strength of those rivets. And he actually said that the, I think they're MK319-BS or 8S or some rivet that we use in there, I forget the exact call out, has a higher shear strength than a solid rivet. I haven't fact checked that. I trust him, but that's something that I'd like trust but verify on. So I'm really not concerned at all with putting the pulled rivets into that area. Like I said, we had them really close. It wasn't like they were way out here. We put a lot of force on there and had to hold them with 4 guys and put things in there. It was kind of like a one-hand squeeze and put them together. But I do want to go back and check on that shear strength of the rivet thing, just out of my own curiosity, not a concern of anything. So, a lot of yammering this morning. Sorry. Let's get into aircraft building. It's going to be some boring work on stiffeners and getting the stiffeners back riveted to the elevator skin. So there'll be some shaping of those stiffeners, which I tend to always screw up. So knock on wood somewhere. Hopefully I don't. Priming of parts, and then maybe we'll get into back riveting as paint dries, and we'll make some kind of progress today. I got about half a day this morning, and then I'm going to be doing some family stuff in the afternoon. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's see what we learn.
So real world translation of half a day turned into about an hour or so. My wife and daughter came home earlier than I expected and put a stop to airplane work so we could go do family stuff. Not a lot to talk about here anyway. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out which stiffeners go where in this skin and make sure that holes line up, and trying my darndest not to screw these things up again like I seem to do so many times, which is really frustrating. I'll tell you, shaping of these stiffeners and cutting these things out and cleaning and deburring, it's like one of the more mundane and painstaking tasks in this aircraft building. Like, it's right up there with dimpling and deburring of holes. So it's not one of my favorite tasks. So you don't see a whole lot here. If I can point out anything, we'll talk a little bit about safety here. And something that I don't do often enough is talk about Paper Gary. And Gary in his real life wasn't one for adhering to safety rules all the time. And many times I was there to remind him and point him in a better direction. In fact, if you go search Gary Wolfelt, you will find his obituary that he wrote himself long before his accident. And he highlights a number of times, and he probably should have been dead or at least critically injured for doing dumb things. So don't do dumb things when you're working with power tools like this bandsaw that you see me using here, or the disc sander. Use some proper PPE. Get your safety glasses on. The dust mask there, because breathing in aluminum dust is never a good idea. And even that leather apron, because that bandsaw, even though it is a great tool that saves a lot of time and makes things much easier, it's a pretty gnarly device. It will launch pieces of metal at you and fling things in your direction and try to stab you in the chest and all kinds of things. So respect that tool. Go slow with it. Keep your fingers clear of the sharp bits. And then, a good pair of gloves is also essential when you're working these things. Aluminum gets hot pretty quick. Every once in a while, you might see me wave this thing out in the air. I don't know if you see that with the video time-lapse the way it is, but it doesn't take much for that aluminum to get hot and burn your fingers. So, I sand for just a couple seconds, and then I might wave it out in the air a little bit to cool it down. So just be careful when you're doing these kind of things. It doesn't take much to get your finger into that disc. And I know a couple times I hit my finger or my knuckle on that, and I'm glad that I had the gloves, because if not, I'd be missing some skin. And so this is just more of the deburring process with that 3M tool or 3M wheel on the grinder and getting all those burrs off of there and make sure everything is nice and smooth. And then the next step in this will be going to dimple. So I'll probably try to knock that stuff out during the week. I don't think I'll post a video of me just dimpling all these stiffeners and then dimpling all the skin. So hoping that, this is Tuesday night that I'm processing this video. Maybe tomorrow night I can get in there and do the dimpling and the priming so that next time I have a chance to record, it'll be actually putting this together. So that's all for now, folks. Going to turn it over to Live Action Jeff for your closeout. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
All right, friends, unfortunately, that's going to wrap it up for today. Out of time. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share. We'll try to get that to 150. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Jeff and Paper Gary out.